So here's something interesting. Almost 9 years ago, in October of 2015, while not being a student but still a background supporter, I made my way to the Union Buildings in Pretoria, the capital of South Africa, where supposedly 15,000 plus students and supporters like myself from across Gauteng, Limpopo, and Northwest would gather on that Friday, not for a jol or like a vibe, but for something bigger, a cause. For those that remember, Fees Must Fall was the first time since democracy that the youth truly united around a key national issue. Fees. What this video is about is money. The money that students were fighting for, amongst other issues. The money that flows from government to state-funded institutions. But importantly, the money that supposedly sits and does nothing to help students. The money that lies in university endowment funds. You see, the one conversation that came up during Fees Must Fall was that there was no money to fund universities adequately enough in key areas. So some of the activists asked, why not redirect some of the billions sitting in varsity endowment war chests? Why not use that money to subsidize students looking for an education? For many of you who don't know, the fact is that here in South Africa, our universities, like many in the West, are sitting on billions of rands in endowment funds. Later on, I'll unpack how much our universities have in the bank so you can get an understanding of the playing field a little bit better. But before we get there, we need to break down what an endowment fund is. In essence, endowment funds represent financial contributions provided for by private sources such as individuals, trust corporations, or donations that are meant to sustain a university indefinitely. Typically, these funds are not directly managed by the university, but are overseen and administered by separate entities like private trusts or special purpose vehicles specifically created to support the institution. A substantial endowment fund grants the university greater autonomy from government or corporate influences. It also enables it to pursue its own path with the resources at its disposal. Not only do endowment funds have the capacity to choose the best faculty to give money to, they also have leeway to offer scholarships to the best students, and in cases where endowments are very large, to many students. They have the room and latitude to support research or academic and even sporting programs that do not receive government funding. In some instances, researching and teaching is also part of this. Endowment funding may be either unrestricted, allowing the university to utilize the funds for operational expenses as needed, or it's frequently earmarked for particular purposes. Establishing an endowed chair or a professorship not only offers significant budgetary relief for the institution, but also it guarantees the ability to attract top-tier academics to fill the position at that varsity. Now, there are different types of endowments, and it's important to know the differences between them. Term endowments only require the principal or the money to be spent only after a specific period or event. Unrestricted endowments allow the receiving institution to use, save, invest, and distribute the assets as they see fit. Mixed endowments are donations intended for a specific purpose. Typically, the principal amount, the money, remains intact, while its earnings follow the donor's instructions. This is going to be important a little bit later. Now, restricted endowments maintain the principal indefinitely. Simply put, rich people give money to their alma mater, organizations, or cause of their choice, and they tell the school or organization what to do with the money that comes from the capital that they've invested. Let me give you a clear example of this. For instance, the creation of the Stellenbosch University was made possible by Mr. Jan Maree. His donation was to the cause of higher education at Stellenbosch. He had magnanimously bequeathed the sum of £100,000, a lot of money in those days, about 25 million rand in today's money. Now, who was Yanni and why did he have so much cash? Yanni was a South African mining magnate, politician and philanthropist who made his money from the Kimberley diamond mines. Interestingly, he also co-founded the now multi-billion-dollar media conglomerate Naspers through this same money. But what's really interesting about Yanni Maree and his endowment is that the money he bequeathed to convert Victoria College into becoming Stellies had certain conditions which included that Dutch or Afrikaans must have equal status to English and that the lecturers need to teach at least half of their lectures in Dutch or Afrikaans. By 1930, very little, if any, instruction was actually delivered in English. The university post-democracy claims to be fully multilingual. If you are someone who went to Stellies, you can please confirm or deny in the comments. Yanni Marais' endowment money still exists and flows even today, and it holds influence and sway around Stellenbosch 109 odd years later. The power of endowments outlived the people who endowed, but their funds live to keep their values alive within institutions. The HJMNF, Yanni's fund, annually donates over 25 million rand to university programs, schools, hospitals, culture projects, law clinics, and various other welfare organizations and projects, specifically in Stellenbosch. For example, in 2018, the Het Jan Marais Nationale Fonds, the fund, injected over 10 million rand to the Stellenbosch University. Of the 10 million rand donation, 5 million rand was earmarked for emergency fund bursaries, while 5.2 million rand would go to Stellenbosch University projects, including the Mati Community Service, Botanical Garden, Law Clinic, and University Choir. The fund also donates what they call the biggest prize in Afrikaans, the Jan H. Marais Prize. The prize itself recognizes an exceptional lifelong contribution to Afrikaans as a science language through scientific works and publications of high standards done in Afrikaans. The prize, worth 750,000 rand, was established in 2015 by the fund, Media 24, and Stellenbosch University. That's just one endowment example of, if I give you money, you do what I say. Look, I want you to understand me. Endowments aren't all bad. These endowments play a crucial role in supporting various academic, sporting activities, including research and teaching. In times of financial turmoil and uncertainty at universities, a carefully organized fund can play a crucial role in supporting continuous teaching and research at that institution. Significantly, endowment funds empower universities to strategize for the future, initiate new projects without the dependence on government. They allow room for investment into infrastructure and enhance the overall academic pursuit by incorporating the latest technologies and being able to afford them. Now, the other side of this is that many university insiders feel that without the security of an endowment, the institution loses much needed security of ensuring a long-term plan has the funds to be realized in order to meet the changing needs of current and future students and its faculty. It's important to note that because the people who give money tell universities what that money can be used for, very little to none of the donors actually are donating this money to underprivileged or disadvantaged students. It's only high achievers that mainly get funded. This is where many would speak to the downside of merit-based systems and scholarships in the context of South Africa. So where and who is currently giving all this money to South African universities? Data reported on in 2022 shows that local and international philanthropists donated 1.5 billion to 10 South African universities in 2019 alone. And when income from Sector Education and Training Authorities, SETAs, is added, the total giving increased to more than 1.94 billion rand. These findings are according to the latest annual survey of philanthropy in higher education, released by Inyathelo. The 10 universities also reported that they employed 174 full-time and part-time staff working directly in fundraising, development, and alumni relations. This was by the end of 2019. These numbers suggest that the more an institution spends on attracting philanthropic income, the higher the amount of income they receive. For instance, when we look at donor numbers, in 2019, the total number of donors increased by 1,700, reaching 12,500 compared to 10,800 in 2018. Notably, this marks a significant rise from 4,355 donors recorded in the initial survey of 2013. Local donors still gave the most to South African universities, contributing 2/3 of total income, maintaining the same percentage as the previous year, but reflecting a substantial 16% increase from 2013 when the survey first started. Foreign donors, although constituting only 10% of total donors to universities, accounted for nearly a third, 31% of overall income. These same international donors, primarily organizations, presented notably a larger donation size compared to individuals who contributed the majority among South African givers. In 2019, local trusts and foundations experienced greater growth in size compared to their foreign counterparts. Among the various initiatives, 49% of donations were intended for student funding, 17% for teaching and learning, 9% for community engagement, 3% for infrastructure, and 7% for other initiatives. When we look at traditional versus non-traditional universities, traditional universities accounted for 70% of the sample and, renowned for their research, attracted 96% of international philanthropic resources totaling 1.48 billion rand. By contrast, non-traditional institutions received only 4% of the total international resources. Now, with that said, let's get to the money part and see how much South African varsities have in the bank. It's also important to note that these endowment funds are typically overseen by fund managers to safeguard the initial capital from donations, with contributions that go out often derived solely from the interest or dividends generated through those investments. It's kind of like a don't kill the cow but drink the milk type of arrangement. Consequently, the majority of university endowments are designed to be managed indefinitely, relying on their capacity to generate income for distributions while preserving their principal amount. Data from 2023 shows that the University of Pretoria has the largest pool of funds, sitting at 14.8 billion rand. It also boasts the largest endowment at 7.4 billion rand. Now, it's important to note how these universities report these numbers. The general pool of funds includes all the money available to the institution, including the endowment fund part. Other universities with significant funds include the University of South Africa with 12.7 billion rand, but they don't specify the endowment portion. Stellenbosch University is sitting on a nest egg of 8.6 billion rand. 5 billion rand of that is an endowment. The University of Cape Town has 8.5 billion rand. 5 billion rand of that is endowment, and Wits had about 5.7 billion rand available to use, and 3.6 billion rand of that is in endowment. The other part of this endowment conversation is about where and how these funds are invested, and also how much say current students have in how this money is dispersed and to what ends. For instance, in 2021, students and alumni at UCT questioned the university about how it was juggling the status of being a leading center for climate science research while still holding 2.5% of its endowment investments in the fossil fuel industry, which is seen as one of the leading causes of the climate crisis. Tricky, right? But in response, circa 2017, UCT set up a university panel for responsible investment. It was basically a committee that would look into the investments that the University Endowment Fund was basically involved in. A notable development is evident in South Africa's fossil-free disinvestment campaign, which has achieved significant success at places like UCT. Following a dedicated 4-year effort, the university's convocation, comprising of alumni and students, recently voted in favor of a motion to divest from fossil fuels. The Roads Must Fall movement further contributed to the spotlight on worker exploitation issues. The movement accused UCT leadership of complicity in even Marikana due to its endowment fund investing in Lonmin at the time. There is no denying that endowment funds play a key role in assisting universities and education institutions to plan for the future. They give scholarships, help varsities afford and retain better staff, and also invest in research and development. There's a lot of good that they do. I just think that most people might not have understood what they are for and how they work. Thus, many are vilified. Also, universities are secretive about these funds and they don't communicate the terms surrounding them adequately enough, let me say, for people to understand how and why the money is spent. Also, our South African point of view and the need to strive for equality creates a sore point when legacy varsities still have funds that give them an edge over newer or even older majority black institutions. What stands out to me as a critical point is that an institution like the University of Fort Hare doesn't have an endowment fund that even registers on this list. For all its history and legacy, none of the alumni seem to be supporting the institution as others are to their alma mater. Even after they have left the university for the better, and as they become people of considerable means in the world and in this country, or as they gain access to money and corporate influence, they just are not giving back to this university. And finally, I want to leave you with this. More often than not, we must as a people understand that no one is coming to save us but us. Thank you for watching this video until this point. You've stuck around and I greatly value your time. Now, maybe considering checking out one of the other videos, and maybe they'll be just as interesting as this one. Cheers.